This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day, and that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcasts. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. You can always read my work on ESPN.com. And of course, a very Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays. And as I've always said, I appreciate you tuning in all year, especially during seasons like this. I hope just to inform you, keep you informed about your favorite team and what's going to happen now and in the future. So thank you very much. And it's going to be a lot of stuff in the offseason I think you'll probably get a little excited about because changes will be coming. Anyway, let's get to today's game against the New York Jets, a 30-28 loss. And in some ways, I know in many ways for you guys, it's a win. And I know in that locker room, it's a loss and it stings because they still want to win. You want the draft pick. I get it. I don't blame you. I think it's important to have better options at the top of the draft. And if they had won today, that pick could have gone from being in fourth right now to maybe seventh or eighth in the bottom half of the draft. And then you're in danger of maybe something else going awry over the next couple of weeks to really kind of push them down and then take that option away. Yes, I know it's better to have those options. You want, again, when it gets to April, you're going to want the choice of, do you take an elite player? Let's say they get to number 3. Well, you may not get your quarterback there. For those of you who think, oh, you just get a quarterback, the first 2 teams may want that quarterback and the top 2 quarterbacks. And there's a difference between Caleb Williams and Drake May and then everybody else in this draft. So keep that in mind. So just picking third doesn't get you the quarterback you want, but it does give you options. And it's certainly, you can, if you think the tackles, the kid from Notre Dame, the kid from Penn State, if they're fairly close, you could trade back. You could take a Marvin Harrison if you get to third and you want to go that direction. You could trade back and get more picks, get more ammo for next year. Make sure you always add assets now and in the future because it allows you to be more aggressive going after players. I get it. And so I think one thing, to keep in mind though, I think one of the things you wanted to see out of this game or that they needed to see out of this game is, first of all, I think it's indicative why as horrible as that looked in the first half. I mean, that was as bad a first half as they played in a long time. And they've played some really bad halves, but again, it's who they're playing. It's the same thing when they played Chicago this year. That was one of the worst halves I've ever seen them play because of who they are playing. And the same thing today. And there's just the mistakes, the lack of attention to detail, the focus, all that stuff was garbage. So, but I think what you can see is you don't have a team of quitters. They didn't quit, whether it's on themselves, whether it's on the coaches, whatever, they didn't quit. And I think that's important because you need guys like that in your system. You don't want a team that just quits and tanks despite, they don't care about the draft pick because they know it takes more than being a high pick to make a good team. You think Terry McLaurin thinks that the 3rd pick or 4th pick guarantees you being really good when he's a 3rd round pick and he's really good? No. However, again, I'm not saying you shouldn't feel like that, but I'm just saying that that's why you want guys like that on the field and you want players who do not quit and who do care. Because if you don't have that, you have a hell of a lot longer to go than just one high pick is going to be able to take you. Then you get in a situation like there are teams like Jacksonville, Detroit, Cleveland. They were drafting top 10, top 5 for a long time. It took them a long time to get there. And it's not necessarily because, all these picks started to hit. Not the case. So, it's going to take more than that. And that's where this ownership, Josh Harris, they need to get it right because it's going to take more than, you've got a 3rd pick. Now you can be golden. Well, I've covered this franchise for a long time when they've had these high picks. Chris Samuel, LeVar Arrington. Samuels was very good, obviously. For a long time, LeVar had his moments and at times was pretty good and at times was not, right? Or was not living up to that draft status. but they didn't win enough with those. They didn't, RG3, number 2 pick, had one good year, and then that was it. Injuries, but it was a lot of other things too. So there have been playing Chase Young, 2nd pick, rookie of the year, and then that's it. So it doesn't guarantee anything, but I understand it gives you absolutely more options. And I know, like, based on looking at social media, that's what you guys want, and I get it. But the first thing you have to do, more so than having a high pick, is getting it right at the GM and the coach. Otherwise, the point I'm just trying to get across is, otherwise the high pick doesn't matter. The people picking it matters a ton, whether they're 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th. I think that's where you're going to go. However, the combination of the right people with the high pick can help you a lot, can help you get there a little bit quicker than you would have in the past. And I know, again, come April, you guys are going to be, shoot, I know come right now, you guys are feeling pretty good about that. I think I think more people will look at it like that, certainly at that time, because again, depending on who's making the pick, who's making the choice, that's going to matter quite a bit. So I get it. But again, I go in those locker rooms and I see the anguish on some of these players, or I see the disappointment on some of these players' faces, because when they took the lead, what I saw on the sidelines was a team that for the first time in a long time felt excited, like that they felt like they could snap this streak, because that matters to them. And again, you want it to matter to guys, because a lot of these guys will be on the roster next year. You want to have guys that it matters to. And watching them react after Antonio Gibson took the lead with the touchdown was something that we haven't seen that in a long time. So you want guys like that on there, but I get it. You also want the high pick, and you got that too. So congratulations. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel that way. Anyways, the other thing is when you watch like Ron Rivera in the post-game press conference, and you could tell that it mattered to him that this team didn't quit. You could see somebody asked him about that, about the resiliency or the fact that they came back like that. And you can see his eyes get a little bit red, because you know that it matters to him. But I will say that was a very dispirited team and effort that I saw. And you could see this coming, like during the week, you could just tell, like, I'm not going to say these players have checked out, because I think that second half suggests that they haven't, but you could just tell that that there's not the same energy or whatever that there would be if you were 9-4 going in this game, or whatever, 10-4, whatever, going in this game, where you have more of a chance. And you look at that first half, just dispirited, big time. And they played like it. And then Jacoby Brissett comes in, and then they didn't. So let's talk about that right now, because that's the other big thing going forward with this team is who's going to be the quarterback. That's obviously the biggest question going on. And I wrote a story about that for ESPN, which is the case for Sam Howell sticking in that job and the case against. And really right now, if you're new people coming in, you obviously going to put that on the table. You're going to look at everything, because there's no way you can assume, I'm going to come in here and Sam's my guy. You can't assume that. What, based on what? And I know, like, there's been a lot of good, and it's certainly not all his fault, but you've got to keep looking for that. And if you come to the conclusion that, Howell is a better option than quarterbacks is X, Y, and Z, okay. But it's on the table, and it has been for a while. And the one thing I'll say with Howell is just the way he handles things. And I think wherever he goes, whatever he does, I think it's been huge for him to have Jacoby Brissett on his side. And I think one of the things that was beneficial to them in keeping Brissett around was for the development of Howell. And it was from moments like today. And I'm going to get into that in a minute, but first let's talk about actually, let's go back to that, because I don't need to go on just yet. I'll get to this in a minute about who should start. But with Brissett, where it is just his mentorship of Howell. And if this kid's going to have a chance to develop as a quarterback in the NFL, regardless of here, regardless if it's somewhere else, if it's as a starter, as a backup, it's having a guy like that can make a big difference. And one of the things, I want to read you something that Brissett, and I should have had this out, but it's in my pocket, it's on my phone, but it's about what Brissett said that he told Howell after the game, and this is why guys like this are invaluable. So he went up to Howell after the game and said, he's coming off the field, and he's like, I know this, I'm the last guy you want to hear from. He said, quote, "I'm excited for this part of your career because not a lot of people get this experience. The ones that come out on the other side, they have a better story than a lot of people. He'll appreciate this part of the journey at the end of his career." That's why that guy's invaluable. And then the other thing Brissett said about how every time I watch him play, I'm seeing a kid fight for everything. It is easy for somebody to come up here and say, oh, he could have did this, or he could have did that, or Jacoby would have won the game and did this and that. What he's had to endure this year and what he's gone through in these moments right now, and he's still standing tall, man, I'm excited for this part of his career. He's going to come out on top. Now, whether or not he does, time's going to tell. But to have someone who can reinforce that message to him in the locker room, that's why that guy is important to have for any young quarterback. And listen, if they go in a different direction with young quarterbacks in the offseason, Brissett would be a great guy to keep around for that reason. And then you see what he does on the field. His first 5 drives this year, all touchdowns. And I think that then it leads to the question, like, who's going to start next week? Because the whole thought process was, well, they wanted to see how Howell responded to a bad game in LA. They want to see how he progresses and develops, because I think, certainly for Ron Rivera, his legacy right now, the one part he has left is the quarterback position. It has not been good up to now. His one chance to leave it in a good spot is if Howell hits, if Howell develops. And so they wanted to give him another chance. At this point, though, you look at Brissett and it's like, who gives you not just a better chance to win, but a better chance to evaluate. And I think for whoever comes in, it would be good to see what is this offense capable of? What are these players capable of? And how does it look with this guy compared to this guy? And, so is it all about Howell? Is it about some other aspects of his game or their offense or their players? What do you think of player X, Y, or Z? And how do they look with Howell versus how they look with Brissett? It gives you just a better chance to evaluate the entire roster. And I think it would be good for Howell. I remember I talked to Howell, or talked to guys, quarterbacks about this in the past. Like even like last week with Howell, was it helpful to have him sit and watch for a couple of series? Well, not really, because they were running a 2-minute offense and it wasn't the same situation. And while when Brissett comes in, clearly they're going to run a little bit of a difference, some different play calls and all that. But this was a wider sample size. But I think an entire game then gives him a chance to really kind of process what he sees someone else do, and then can he incorporate some of that into his game moving forward? And it may not happen the next week. It may not happen the following week, but it may happen at some point in his career, again, whether it's here or next year. Because listen, they don't have to get rid of Sam Howell. So whoever comes in, Howell can still be a factor in this situation. If they draft a rookie quarterback, if they draft Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix, who's to say that Howell's not going to be better than them? I can't, because we don't know. And I know in my one story, Jordan Reed, ESPN NFL draft expert, said that he would keep Howell. Instead, he would keep Howell and draft a tackle if they stayed at 4 versus taking a Jaden Daniels. He didn't think Jaden Daniels was really that kind of a prospect. Of course, you can trade back and maybe get Daniels and or Penix later in the draft or later in the first round, wherever. But he didn't think he was that. Others are going to have different opinions, and that's fine. But the point is, I think Howell's going to could still be a factor here as competing for the job, and see how do you grow from this kind of a year? Can it help you? Did it help you? So, and if he does, then you can look back and say part of the reason he got there was because he was with a guy like Jacoby Brissett. I just think Brissett's a really good guy to have in the locker room and has been all year. Plays with some confidence. I think that's one of the things that you saw with Howell, was not playing with a lot of confidence today. Having said that, part of the reason is because first 2 plays, first one, Curtis Samuel drops a ball. That should have been a 7 or 8 yard gain. Next play, Logan Thomas has a ball go off his hands, pops up, interception. Now they're down 3-0. So your confidence, whether or not it's on you, do you start to press a little bit because, it's starting again, right? And I don't know, like Howell is not a guy who tends to get, have his confidence too shaken, but you're human. I mean, it happens, and it wasn't going well. And there were a lot of reasons for it. I mean, shoot, there was a 3rd and 8. And I think there was a clip of this out on whatever from the on social media, but 3rd and 8 where Howell drops back and he starts to pump. It looks like he's going to throw, but Logan Thomas slips out of his break, so he can't throw it because the play that's probably a first down because it's there. It's a good call. The play's there. He's ready to throw it, but Thomas slips, so now he's going to try and get out of the pocket. And there were a couple times like that, and then there's other times where it's just a bad ball. The interception, Curtis Samuel slips out of his break. This is not making excuses for him. It's just telling you what happened. But there's a cumulative toll of those negative plays, regardless of who's at fault. Then you start to feel like you start to press. The offense hasn't done nearly enough with him running the show the last couple of weeks. We know that. So clearly there's some of this is on him, and it could be a lot. That's why I think it'd be good to see with Brissett, how would he handle a top defense like they're going to face next week against the Niners? Does that help you in your evaluation of Howell, and maybe help him see, maybe help your evaluation of other players as well? So I think that's one of the things that's important to see. And, I mean, I think that could help everybody moving forward. It certainly gives them a better chance to be more competitive. And again, I can't stress enough, you want them to be competitive, because if not, you're going to have a longer road ahead of you to get back to where you want to be.
This episode is brought to you by Google Pixel, the official fan phone of the NBA and WNBA. The new Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro are built different. How? Take the Audio Magic Eraser tool. It helps block out distracting crowd noise so your play-by-play commentary sounds crystal clear. The only phone engineered by Google brings out the audio you care about so your videos sound as crisp as they look. Learn more at googlestore.com/pixelnba. Audio Magic Eraser requires Google Photos app. May not work on all audio elements.
This episode is presented to you by NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. With NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube and YouTube TV, you can watch your favorite teams' out-of-market Sunday games, plus watch up to 4 games at once with Multiview. Don't miss the race to the playoffs. NFL Sunday Ticket is now just $39 when bundled with YouTube TV, where you get even more football. Visit youtube.com/Spotify offer to sign up now. Lowest price on YouTube TV with base plan. Rest of 2023 season. Terms and embargoes apply. No cancellations.
This episode is brought to you by Chevrolet. Now's your chance to support a team with real grit. The Chevy ZR2 family of off-road trucks. The first ever Silverado HD ZR2 joins the all-new Colorado ZR2 and the Silverado ZR2 for a commanding lineup of off-road ready trucks, equipped to take on anything this season throws their way. Visit Chevy.com to learn more.
I could go from here and talk about some of the other miscues today. The special teams were abysmal, and it's this goes back to focus, discipline, etc. You had Burgess missing on a block as the punt protector leads to a block punt. You have Christian Holmes, couple penalties. You have Castro Fields with a penalty, extended a drive on. There was a 4th and 3, and you commit the penalty and they extend the drive again. I know it helps the win for the Jets, and I know that that makes you happy. However, you don't want to see those kind of things in the future, because that's where this is a measuring stick for a lot of players, and it just means you need more guys. Now, do any of those guys really factor into the future here? Maybe not, but it's still indicative of an overall roster and where they're at. But man, then Jamison Crowder with the fumble on there is a nice return. Then he loses the fumble. That stuff is a killer. But again, they may not be big factors here in the future. So, you can take that however you want. But the one guy I do want to talk about, because again, this is the game stuff is kind of, again, they're 4-11. So there you go. But Chris Rodriguez, I really like him, and I have liked him. I liked watching his film from Kentucky. Thought he fit what they want to do. A good one cut runner, runs with power, and he had first 2 touchdowns today. And it's funny because he talked about after the game, that he was kind of trying to plan, like, what kind of celebration would you have if you score and all that. And Jennifer King, the assistant running backs coach, told him, you're going to score and you're going to forget what you want to do. And he kind of did. But he's going to keep the balls, give one of them to his dad. And I think the big thing for him lately has been, they've been harping on it with him. You were running a little bit too tight early in the year. And for him, that means like he wasn't hitting the hole the way he wanted to, the way he was at Kentucky. And I'll tell you, he had a couple runs today where that's what he did. And that guy, when he runs, he fires up a sideline. He's a running back version of Terry McLaurin. McLaurin, when he gets going and he runs with some of that, he runs with some anger and he gets some power going. And that sideline just is energized. And I think Rodriguez absolutely gives that to them as well, as much as anybody does, I think, at that position. And I think he's a guy that you could certainly be a factor in the future. How good, we'll see, because you want to see him over a course of a game and then a course of a few games to get a better feel for him. But I do think that kid can run the ball. And you saw him that he had an 11-yard run and a 16-yard run in back-to-back plays in the fourth quarter. On the 11-yard run, he's going through, first of all, Sadiq Charles does a nice job on Quinnen Williams on this play, where Williams doesn't get a full shot on Rodriguez. but he also does get his hands on him and he breaks through. And then someone else comes over. I think it was a safety, gets on him, and then Rodriguez carries him for 8 yards. That's what you want to see. And then on the next play, he's got the 16-yard run where he hurdles somebody. First time ever. But the point is he's running with a little bit more, I wouldn't say not freedom, but maybe running a little bit more like they want him to run, the way he ran at Kentucky. And I think the nice thing for him is that's what he showed at Kentucky. And if he can get to that point here, maybe in the future, depending on the offensive system, because that's going to be a lot of it for him, but it was just a good game to see him have for this franchise. Again, regardless of who's coaching, I think what he's shown is that he runs with power, and he's somebody who could at least be part of the rotation down the road. And I think that's what you're looking for to see right now, is who can help you, whether it's now or in the future. And I certainly think that he can. He breaks tackles, runs with power, always leaning forward. And the play I told you about, the one with Williams, part of the reason he breaks through Williams is because where his shoulder's at, it's out. He's out in front, right? He's leaning forward, and he's breaking through. So that's what he does. And I think it's not something he has to learn. What he has to learn is just run natural. And if he does that, he's going to be okay. So there you go. That's it for me. I don't have anything more else to add about this game. It's really not about this game. It's about season. It's about draft picks, about quarterbacks. Because the problem with this, where this franchise is at now, is they don't know going forward who's going to be the quarterback. You cannot say for certainty who should or shouldn't be. At worst, there's going to be some level of competition, whether it's the way they evaluate. Again, we don't even know who's going to be here. So I guess I should slow my roll on that a little bit. But I do think that nobody's going to come in here and think problem solved at this position. But you want to learn a lot about Howell. You want to learn a lot about everybody else. And the season has certainly told you that, and these next couple games could, but I do, we're going to find out Tuesday who is going to be the starter quarterback. And personally, I think I would roll with Brissett just to put sit Howell down, let him watch. Let's see how the offense runs with somebody else. They're going to have a hard time winning either one of these games anyways, but maybe you can maybe you can help him see what he has to learn for at least one game. So anyway, you may disagree, but and I don't have any problem with anybody who does, because I don't know that there's a right answer in that. And you can wonder, what would they have done with Brissett in charge? I don't know. And I do know that, but the hard part with Brissett is that, throughout his career, he's been a backup, good spot starter. He's, played pretty well for Cleveland last year. But for this staff, for this team to grow, they kind of really needed to roll the dice on how the way the defense played. I think with Brissett, maybe you're certainly going to get a few more. You could get a few more wins, but man, that defense is really what cost them this season. And I don't know that if Brissett led them to a 9-8 record, are they in a much better spot than where they are now? I don't know. So you can have that debate. Anyways, I'm done. It's Christmas Eve. I want to go join my family. Merry Christmas to everybody. And I'll be back on Tuesday night with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders. It's our live stream show, 7:30 Eastern time. Join us there. I'll talk to you next time.